Consequences are something that we often don't think about, and I think we don't often take time to talk about them, because I think when you hear the word consequence, what's the first thing that comes to your mind? Probably, if you're being honest with yourself, you think of consequences and think bad. Okay, so I did something bad, so here's the consequences for what I did bad. But I want to take the next couple weeks and really just look at this idea of consequences, kind of get an idea for it today, and then look at the good consequences and the bad consequences. But as I was thinking about consequences, I thought about something in my life that I didn't tend to think of the consequences for. So I think, as I've shared with you guys multiple times, smoking was something in my story that I struggled with from about 15 years old for 6-7 years in my life. And so when you walk through something like that, okay, there's the consequence that if you're around people, they get the secondhand smoke, or there's the consequences of, I understand what I'm doing to my body, so, but I'm okay with it. And so there's these consequences that are kind of like, we know on the outside what happens when you do something like this to yourself, to others you're around. But what I didn't take time to understand is that the consequences go much deeper than just about me and just about things that I'm doing to other people. But it starts to taint the reputation of people around me. Now, my parents have to walk around with their son being labeled as a smoker, and they take on the pain, the comments, the behind the back conversations because of what I'm doing, not what they're doing. I don't think about my siblings having to know that their brother is doing something like this and they're getting the repercussions from their friends at school. We get so focused in on about us, and it's only affecting us. A huge thing that I won't talk about here, but is the issue of pornography. And a lot of people say, well, it's just affecting me. No. The consequences go much deeper than that. And so we have to understand that in everything we do, there's consequences. That means there can be good consequences and there can be bad consequences. But in everything, there's consequences. So the one thing I want you to walk away with in these next moments is that everything has consequences. Everything you do, every decision you make, consequences are on the other side, because we don't often take time to step back and be cautious about every decision we make. We don't take time to just think about, okay, what I'm doing or what I decide to do is going to have a consequence, whether it's good or bad, and we need to take the time to step back and go, is this a consequence I'm okay with? Rather, we just want to burst out of the gates and make the decision now because it's what we feel like. Everything has consequences. So let's try to work with a definition here that Google gave me. So, it's not always accurate, but it gives us a pretty good understanding. And it says consequences are a result or effect of an action or condition. Consequences are a result or effect of an action or condition. So let me take you to a verse in Galatians that I think is really going to shed light on consequences. It says here in Galatians 6, verse 7, I'm reading out of the Passion Translation, make no mistake about it, God will never be mocked. And here's where I want to focus. For what you plant will always be the very thing you harvest. Did you catch what it's saying here? Okay, it says, God will make no mistake about it. God will not be mocked or laughed at is another way to kind of say that. But then the second part is really what I want to hone in on. What you plant will be the very thing that you harvest. It doesn't say here in Scripture what you plant might be what you harvest or sometimes what you plant is what you're going to harvest. No. Everything that you decide to harvest will be exactly what you, or plant will be exactly what you harvest. In order to understand consequences, we have to step back and look at what we're planting in life. Because you could be choosing to live a carefree life. That's what you're planting. You will reap the consequences of your carefree life. Just what we talked about a few weeks ago. If you want to live a lukewarm life, you're not really doing anything bad, but you're not doing anything good, then you will reap the consequences of a lukewarm life. Well, if you're walking on fire for Jesus, growing daily, taking the time to invest in that relationship, then you're going to reap the consequences of a Spirit-filled life. We cannot expect to have good consequences with bad things planting in our lives. Let me say that again, because I think you desperately need to hear this, because a lot of people step back and go, I don't understand why I'm having the things in life that I am, the addictions I'm having, the friends I'm having, because you can't expect to have good consequences if you're planting bad things. So you have to take the 1,000-foot view. What are you planting in your life? I looked at my life and I go, well, why am I in the situation I am? Why am I doing the things I'm doing, having the addictions that I have, having the friends that I have? And I had to step back and go, okay, what am I planting in my life for these consequences? I had to look at my friends and go, okay, there's some people in this friends group that I'm planting some bad things in my life, so I need to take that out so that I reap good consequences. Well, I need to take a step back and look at what I'm watching in my life. And there's some bad things I'm planting, so I need to take those out and plant some good things in there. Well, what am I doing in my free time? Well, that's not good stuff that I'm doing in my free time, so I need to take a step back and take the bad stuff out and plant the good. Consequences are a reality in everything that we're doing. And you can't expect to have good consequences when you take a step back and look at all areas in your life, because Jesus is supposed to take control of your entire life. He doesn't get some of it, he gets all of it. So what are you going to do? What are you going to do? I can't fix you. What I can tell you is that if you want to have good consequences in your life, then you need to take a step back and look at what you're planting in your life, because what you will harvest are good consequences or bad consequences. What are you planting? When you look at what you watch, when you look at what you're doing in your free time, when you look at your relationship with God and how that's growing, you look at kind of the priority of what you put church and believer type events, is the best way I can say it, as a priority. When you take a step back and look at all of these things, then you're going to begin to understand what you're planting in your life. And you're going to be able to determine the consequences you will have. So, will you please this week take a moment and look at what you're planting? Because it's so hard to sit back and hear students say, well, I don't understand, or just people in general, why I'm doing what I'm doing, or why I have the things in my life that I have. Because I can guarantee if you sit down and take a look at your life, you can see what you're planting, and that's leading to the consequences you're having in life. Everything has consequences. You have to decide if you're going to be cautious and think through the decisions in your life to get the consequences you have and look at all aspects of your life to see what they're producing, or if you're going to just think freely and just go with the flow and produce bad consequences. We have to be more intentional, to think through our lives, to understand the consequences we're going to receive. What you plant is what you harvest.